Hello and welcome to the Game Football Podcast. From The Times, Leicester are down, Wolves are safe, and Liverpool are just 3 points from claiming their 20th top-flight title. Kevin De Bruyne is fuming, Brentford are in the goals, but Manchester United can't seem to score unless Harry Maguire is on the pitch. On today's show, we'll discuss all of that and much more, including debate who are the greatest midfielders to have played in the Premier League. I'm Tom Clark, and joining me today we have the senior sports writer and Sunday Times columnist Alison Rudd, the football reporter and tactical analyst Hamza Khalik-Lunat, and the former footballer turned journalist Gregor Robertson is here as usual. Team, the Fab Four, here we are, Bank Holiday Monday, all had our Easter eggs, all, completely sugar rushed, high and ready for this, Gregor?
Absolutely. I had to steal my daughter's.
Steal your daughter's Easter eggs?
Just so she wouldn't eat them.
Oh, right, that's fair enough. That's good parenting, actually.
Good parenting.
Good parenting. Sugar management is key. Alison, Buzz?
My son handed me my chocolate button Easter egg and it was eaten within half an hour.
Was that yesterday?
That was on Friday.
Friday? So you're on a big come down now, is what you're saying? So
No, just carried on eating chocolate.
And Hamza, you've been working so hard that you haven't had any Easter eggs.
No, that's right. And I don't like sort of supermarket chocolate anyway. I do like chocolate, but as in...
One of those guys.
Yeah.
One of those guys.
They're too sweet, aren't they? Because when
you
let it melt, you can feel the sugar granules.
There's something in my head that's made me... I bet there's a listener who listens to this who kind of doesn't like the whole, data stuff in modern football.
Just one listener.
Oh, bloody. I knew he'd be one of them. Hotel Chocolat and his expected goals. Bloody typical. Classic. Anyway, wherever.
But it's a fact.
It's a fact.
This is a fact that I agree with Hamza. Supermarket chocolate can be a bit disappointing, but when it's in egg shape form, it tastes absolutely delicious.
Absolutely. I also don't get why they're so cheap as well.
Scarily cheap.
Like really worryingly cheap. Yeah. And then you go and buy like a Mars bar, and then it's really expensive.
Overly sweet Mars bars. Yeah. I like them when I was like 4.
Anyway. Producer Neil's just mouthed something at me across the room, and I think it was get on with it and talk about the football. Or it could have been something about chocolate. Anyway, we'll find out at the break. Let's talk about some football. Hamza, you were at Leicester v Liverpool. A big game for Liverpool, of course. We're going to talk about that in just a second. But Leicester relegated, much like Liverpool's walk to the title. Leicester's heading towards Championship has been happening for a while. What was the mood like in the stadium? Because it's been a difficult season for Leicester fans, much like it has for Southampton fans, this sense that this has been coming for a long time. What was the mood like in the stadium?
It was better than you may ordinarily expect from a team that's just been relegated.
Right.
They were sort of fairly, I wouldn't say positive, but supportive of the team is actually probably a better way to say it. During the match, they were largely supportive. There were a few protests. There was one of those, I don't know when this started, but... when the planes.
The plane, I love it.
Yeah, I think it's quite ridiculous, isn't it? It was really funny the first time.
As the world progresses, though, and we lose, track of ourselves, the fact that this still happens. This was happening at football when I was falling in love with it in the 90s. Banners in helicopters and things. It's great, isn't it? It's still happening.
I think Greg is right to question whether it's a progression. This is a regression. This is not.
No, I'm saying it's not progressing. I like that it stayed exactly the same.
No, but to return to your original point, the mood was generally supportive. I think they understand the Leicester supporters. That is, they understand that the quality gap between their team and the 17 teams that were in the league when they were promoted is just quite big. And it's very hard to overcome that. And the players have given it a good go, and I don't think you can never really look at them and say, they didn't try. They have tried. And in football, unlike most other businesses, when you see the workers trying really hard, you go, okay, I accept that they're doing their job here. And I think that was the general mood from the supporters.
Do you really think there's that much understanding?
Yesterday there was.
Okay.
It was. They were okay with it.
Is it a bit like because we kind of had a similar thing with Alison a few weeks ago talking about Southampton fans at Tottenham, and because it's been coming for so long that maybe the anger has been earlier in the season. Like Southampton, I think about that game, the reverse game against Tottenham, which I think was around Christmas, where they were 4-0 down, people booing and walking out and things. That now they accept, and it's supporting as it should be, that they know that in this moment when relegation is confirmed, they should do their bit for the players and try and rally them. Do you think maybe?
In both cases, it was that the frustration was aimed at the board, and at the same time, I mean, if you're being completely logical about it, which it's not easy to do if you're a supporter and your team has just been relegated, but you would be thinking, God, these are good players that we'll need in the Championship next season. And if we hurl loads of abuse at them and they're not here next season, we'll be in a worse state. So I think generally they want to support the players as much as they can, unless they are genuinely very annoyed with them. But yeah, the anger, I feel, at least for Southampton and Leicester yesterday, I haven't been at all their matches, is directed at the board and also the broader state of football, in that it's very hard to be promoted and then retain your Premier League position, because this will in all likelihood be the second season in a row where the 3 teams that were promoted were then relegated. Yeah,
Leicester have become the first team in top flight history to go 9 consecutive home league games without scoring, and yesterday was also the first league match at the King Power Stadium which they failed to land a shot on target since February 2023. Not a great way of being relegated for Ruud van Nistelrooy, given that he was a new manager coming in. What was his mood like? What was his response like in the press conferences after the game?
He was asked. He spoke quite somewhat positively about the match. He said that he saw signs here and in the Brighton match that the club actually need to take forward into next season. He said it was very difficult to. He was asked whether this job was more difficult than he anticipated. He didn't quite answer that, but in not answering it, he essentially meant yes. I think he said, I expect to have more points on the board. And he said, yeah, you think so?
Fans did too.
So curiously, he mentioned that he will be having a discussion with the board at some point soon. There isn't a date yet about what the future will be and what his position is within that. So he was a bit sort of, he didn't commit, but he also didn't say, I won't be here next season, but that would also be very rude and you wouldn't expect him to say that. He tried to speak positive.
A political mood, I would say, it sounds like.
But you could, again, it's hard to, some questions were asked, but as in, it's a bit difficult, especially if you're not the local reporter that has worked with the manager quite well, to just go in and go, well, you've been relegated, that was rubbish. You have to...
You'll be like, who the hell are you?
Yeah, exactly, So you have to work with them a bit more and try and be a bit...
Understandable.
Yeah.
Gregor, we're going to be...
he's such a diplomat, isn't he?
Yes, all right, I'm coming to you in a minute. But Gregor, I wanted to know about Leicester generally this season. We're going to be recording a show all about the EFL and the Championship, people aspiring and probably nearly being promoted to the Premier League from the Championship. Looking at this team and looking at what Ruud van Nistelrooy's done, do you think he's got a case to keep his job?
No. I mean, part of that is because he has no experience of the Championship. I'm not saying that you have to have, but he's also not. He's kind of, we speak about this quite often about how your kind of standing and going through a run like this can damage you. And I think that's clearly happened.
I mean, it's been a stinker.
That's
absolutely
clearly
stinker.
happened among the squad. So to start next season, it'd be pretty remarkable for the same manager who'd overseen a run like this to come in I would imagine, be broadly the same squad. There'll be some changes, but it'd be pretty remarkable for him to be the guy to try and pick everyone up again the following season. It's all a bit kind of defeatist and sort of, what's the point-ish? Leicester even last season, it was like they had a remarkable start, and then the season sort of faded, and it was like there was almost a bit of sort of even apathy in the fact that they were promoted. This is the weird situation that we now find ourselves in the sort of the division between the Championship and the Premier League. Is that it was different for Southampton, it was different for Ipswich. They had Southampton came on a blitzed a late run towards the end of the season to get in, just fell short of the automatics, got in the playoffs, won at Wembley, great day out, brilliant. Let's go into the next season with our tails up. Ipswich, obviously. Leicester, it was different. So they've had 2 really strange seasons. They've had kind of a bit of a promotion that felt like it was always going to happen, but it wasn't even enjoyed that much. And then a season that's been a complete waste of time in the Premier League. So where do they go next?
I thought, it's interesting. He sounds like he was different for the enclosed press briefing and what he was like on TV. I thought Van Nistelrooy was really overly fatalistic and sort of doing that. He said something like, "That's what it's like here," as in, someone with a head injury, like it mattered. It didn't matter when Liverpool's goal went in, and the shove on Alisson, which was, I can see why you're cross if you're the one that scores the goal, but it is a shove, and you're not allowed to do that. But he made it sound like these things happen to us.
They've conspired against him.
And he's got into that mindset, I think, of, well, it can't be me, so it must be the gods again. And that, to me, implies somebody who isn't going to be appointed because he's not got the right energy. As Gregor says, he doesn't have experience. And this is probably a bit mean, but to me, he has been a bit posh for the job for most of it.
Is it because he wears a roll neck? Is that what you're...
No, but his CV isn't... If you were predicting his career path, you wouldn't have him down battling relegation with Leicester, would you? I mean, you wouldn't.
But that's what Vincent
He looked
Kompany
more comfortable at Old Trafford.
In fairness, Maresca turned up and didn't have any experience at that level.
But that is such a telling statistic, the no goals after no goals after no goals.
Yeah.
I mean, what does that tell you about a team? It tells you that they don't believe in themselves. There's a nervousness. They're picking the wrong finishers. They're not forging attacks properly. It's just, I don't know. I just think, wow, what is football?
They just weren't good enough. They never were from the start. They weren't really. Cooper wasn't really supported in the transfer market in the same way as the other promoted teams. They spent, I think, 70 odd million, but it wasn't even really spent well. And you looked at their squad at the start of the season, and again, you're still relying on Vardy, and Vardy had moments, but he just thought this is well short of where they need to be, and that's proved to be the case.
The one point at which he took a pop, he largely resisted taking a pop at anyone, but he did say, when he was asked about the lack of January transfer signings, he said, yeah, that was we needed some people, we definitely needed them, but we just couldn't bring them in for whatever reason. And that was the one point where he said, yeah, I think it could have been different. But even then, I think if you take a cold, hard look at it, you could go, yeah, you could have brought maybe 1, 2, 3 players in, but I struggled to see how that fundamentally moves the dial on a squad when they're not really close to Wolves, essentially. Wolves, I mean, they have the Brazil midfield. Not the best Brazil midfield, but as in...
They have a Brazil midfield. A version of the Brazil midfield,
which is something for the team. And well, I mean, they're 14th now, or whatever. They were 17th not too long ago. See, competing with that is very hard.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to talk a bit more about Ruud van Nistelrooy and his link with Manchester United in just a second. But Hamza, on Liverpool, it wasn't the best performance of their season by a long way, but getting the win, and Trent Alexander-Arnold coming off the bench, scoring a goal with his left foot. I enjoyed his interview afterwards. It said a lot about modern footballers, didn't it? That as the Sky Sports presenter was telling him the statistic about it being his first goal with his left foot, he knew that already. I love that about modern footballers. They know already. He scored with his left foot and he's running off to the corner flag celebrating, thinking that's the first one with my left foot.
I think, as in, not just footballers, but most people would know that, I think.
You got your stats down, have you?
No,
for your six-a-side
league? No, when you score, let's say you're playing 11-a-side and you just score with your left foot and you're always right-footed. Oh, that's.
I think we have to give Trent a lot of credit. I remember once asking Ledley King when he broke his leg, was it the same leg he damaged last time? And he said, I can't remember.
That's a bloke who's been under a lot of anaesthetic.
Seen a few scalpels.
But in terms of that Trent goal and that moment in Liverpool season has been made up of a lot of excellent, wonderful moments. This is a player, we still don't know his future, of course. Lots of people thinking that it's all done and dusted to Real Madrid. If that is to be the case, this goal is a wonderful crowning moment for him in his Liverpool career.
Yes, and I think it was very well received by the Liverpool supporters as well. When he came on, they started singing his song about being the scouts from the team. I think there's quite a big disconnect between the match-going supporters who seem to really, really love him and were very, very happy that he made an appearance, let alone scored yesterday. And then there's the social media fans who are blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. How dare you go to Real Madrid after winning every trophy under the sun for this team and playing for us since you were 17? How dare you?
Which we've discussed before. But as in, I think there's a really big question about how do you replace this guy? Because if you compare him and Bradley's a really good player. But at 21, he's a fantastic player. But at 21, Trent was quite a bit ahead of him in conversations for maybe best right back in the world or definitely in the league, right? And if you just, for example, if you compare Conor Bradley's passing accuracy when he's pressed compared to when he's not being pressed, the drop-off is around like 18 percentage points, which is kind of normal. So most players get a bit worse when they're being pressed. Makes sense. However, that is probably the worst in the Liverpool squad. Most of them only drop off by a bit. Trent, I think, is around 8 percentage points or so. And crucially, what Trent offers, we spoke about expected threat before, but as in this season, Trent is producing 0.3 per 90. That's the highest in the league.
Right.
I had a discussion with a few friends a while ago while we were watching the Champions Trophy about Joe Root actually, and
didn't see that coming when you started this stat.
Yeah, the Moneyball thing where it's like, oh yeah, you've got to recreate him in the aggregate. With Joe Root, you're going to need just like 8 blokes, aren't you? Like, you can't just recreate that. And I think it's the same with Trent because he's producing 0.3 expected threat from right back. Salah is only producing 0.19 on the wing. And then I think Van Dijk is going at 0.12, Konate 0.1. And I think Robertson is in the high teens. But as in, if you lose a player like of that production and quality, you've got to completely rejig the way that you play. You can't just get in someone else that produces that because not even Salah does. But that being said, it seemed like a great moment for him. He was very happy. Well, you look very happy, and he sort of definitely tried to avoid the contract question. Yeah,
which is fair enough.
But
great pictures as well from an editing point of view. When he took his top off, I was like, "Thanks, Trent. That is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Really kind." At one point, I was thinking, 0-0. What the hell is the story here?
He's done this a few times. So, I think Slot mentioned that big players have big moments.
Yeah.
And if you take this game or the Newcastle, the 3-3 at St James's Park, when Salah was completely isolated for around 60 minutes, Trent came on, and then he and Salah came to life, and suddenly Liverpool had 2 goals in the lead. He has that ability to change matches. I think very few players do. So
Trent, he's unique, but Bradley, like the more he will change the dynamic if he's the player that they kind of go with next season. He will change the dynamics of the team. He still links up brilliantly with Salah, or with forwards, and makes like third man runs and things like that. It's different. It's more like combinations around the box as opposed to trying to get into a little space where he can deliver a worldie of a pass or a cross. But it's just going to change the dynamic of the team, but he's still hugely productive going forward.
The thing was with Trent, he came on, and even when he was losing the ball, it was like an upside for the team. As in, he'd lose it as in he'd play a pass in behind in such a way that the defender has to turn, chase it, and then suddenly you've got a nice pressing opportunity or counter-pressing opportunity, or he'd force it, the ball rebound, and then second balls, and then you break.
Is that a new stat, Hamza? Productive incomplete passes.
No,
productive lost possession.
That's just like counter pressing. De Bruyne, Thiago were like
no, Tom,
really good.
Stupid.
Thiago and De Bruyne in particular, very very good at assessing when to force a pass,
right?
And knowing that if the ball is intercepted, how well positioned your team is to then counter press it. Trent is quite similar in that. That's why he has high expected threat values.
We're all Team Arsenal on Wednesday night, aren't we?
Who are Arsenal playing on Wednesday?
Crystal Palace. As in, we want Arsenal to win.
No, Palace are one of my favourite teams in the league.
I know, but from the point of view of when Liverpool win the title.
Yeah, it's always better for them to
do
win
it at
on
home,
the pitch.
at the weekend, on the pitch.
Yeah. Oh, that is...
Surely.
That is Schrodinger's cat, isn't it? Because you sort of want 2 separate universes, one in which you can enjoy Crystal Palace preparing for their FA Cup in a fantastic way by beating Arsenal. And you also want it to be true that Arsenal win so that Liverpool take the title by a scintillating display against Spurs at home.
Although you might get the Jamie Vardy moment where everyone pals around to Big Virgil's house and like they're watching it and with a beer.
They'll all be there, I think. They'll all be there anyway, won't they? But whether you have the party or not, we will see what happens on Wednesday night with that game. Liverpool very, very, very close to winning that title. I mentioned it there, linking Leicester and Ruud van Nistelrooy to Manchester United. Ruben Amorim. I mean, we're going to talk about the Europa League in just a second because we have to talk about one of the most remarkable games ever. But, I mean, it's the most obvious thing ever, wasn't it, to follow that up with a 0-1 defeat against Wolves at home? Is there a world in which Ruud van Nistelrooy had stayed at Manchester United and Steve Cooper had stayed at Leicester, they'd both have more points than they have now? I honestly think they might have. I think Ruud van Nistelrooy, and to your point about Ruud van Nistelrooy, what was it you said? A bit posh for the job.
Bit posh for Leicester. Yeah.
Whereas
Posh.
big Ruud in his roll neck, walking out at Old Trafford, geeing up
He looked
the
far more
Stretford end.
comfortable. He did
Geeing up the
look more
Stretford end,
comfortable.
giving it the chat. You know, the Ole Gunnar
Yeah.
Solskjaer, this is Manchester United, 4-2-3-1, Casemiro and, you know, all the old lads in midfield. Keep it simple. They definitely have more points.
I think they
wouldn't
definitely would have had more
I think
points.
they might. They might be out of the Europa League, but
they'd be out of the
they'd be out
Europa
of the
League.
Europa League with more points, and it'd be kind of different. Do you agree, Greg?
Yeah, it's possible.
I think Cooper might
not
have got
many
more
people
points
could
at
have
Leicester,
done
wouldn't
worse.
they?
Not many people could have done worse. You know, they're just inflicting the system upon a team that really doesn't want it. I'd also think it's true of Cooper. Like, Cooper was dealt a bit of a hospital pass, and I think he was doing all right.
He was doing okay.
There was
Weren't
an
they
issue.
out of the relegation zone when they sacked him? I think
Just
they were.
to say,
Yeah.
There was an issue to do with like this connection with the fans. He struggled to really strike up much of a rapport with them, possibly because of the Forest connection
Yeah.
and stuff. So that might have gotten worse. So you never know about that. But I think tactically, he's far superior to Van Nistelrooy, and he would have given them a chance to be. I think they would have been much closer than they are now.
Yeah, absolutely bonkers. Anyway, coming back to Manchester United, and I did think this is one of the failings of our scheduling, I would say, Monday, Thursday, is that we don't give the Europa League enough love at times, because the games happen on the Thursday night, then the league happens at the weekend, and we've almost forgotten it. So let's go back to Thursday night. And Alison Rudd, I thought of you when I was following this result and watching this game, because as we say, Manchester United are in a terrible state at the moment. And yet they managed to win these games. And I thought of you when we were talking about who's more likely to win the competition. And you said, because they are Manchester United and because they have won trophies. Is that what this was? Or was this just something completely bonkers? Or was this Old Trafford at home, the goals, the supporters, they're getting the ball in the goal themselves with just sheer force. Was that what it was? I can't work it out.
Well, it's everything, isn't it? It's the history and the fact the fans decided to go for caring. That mattered a lot. And Amorim is a bit eccentric, and playing Harry Maguire as a centre forward is something that Ruud van Nistelrooy probably wouldn't have done. And
posh for that.
Far too posh for that. But also, oh my goodness, I couldn't really believe what I was hearing and seeing, because they were playing against 10-man Lyon. I mean, you'd have thought
a very harsh red card.
It was like, really? It would have been the ultimate indignity, I think, for them to have gone out against 10-man Lyon.
Also, when they were 2-0 up and cruising.
Yeah,
and
the whole match was a disgrace in many respects.
It's bonkers.
Really. So having more men on the pitch, that helped, and the febrile atmosphere, that helped, and I think some sort of underlying knowledge, whether it was subconscious or conscious, that it would have been absolutely disastrous not to have done what they did. And that can take you into
panic,
strange places.
Sheer
where
panic.
you I don't know, like you forget, it's almost like it's so bad you forget how bad it is, and it becomes all about the need and the passion and the desire and the fact that this is momentous in a very underwhelming campaign. So
is there also a part of it?
But ultimately, if you take away all the emotion and all the crazy commentary and the sheer number of goals over 2 legs, it was pretty abysmal game management from Manchester United.
Yes, absolutely. But that's what I was coming to, whether this kind of game management tactics and everything, it's not working, the whole 3-4-2-1. He's just like lob them all on the pitch and hope for the best, shouldn't he? Because that's what happens at the end of these games. A front two, Mainu and Maguire, big man, little man. Why not? That's what he was doing at the end. To the back post, Maguire, ball into Mainu's feet, get Bruno Fernandes playing behind him. Why not? Hamza, what do you reckon?
I didn't watch this match live because I was at the Rangers match, and I made the sort of tactical decision to not watch the United Wolves match because I thought, in combination with the Rangers match, that's enough bad football for like a weekend.
But what do you think about my idea for Ruben Amorim, though? As stupid as it is, stick Big Harry up top, get a little man playing off him. Why not? It seemed nothing else is working, judging by that Wolves game. I'm telling you.
No, you should. At this point, he's sort of committed to what he's doing, right? He can't be moving away from that because then that signals that he isn't confident in his idea or what he wants to achieve. And at that point, if the manager begins to unpick what actually made them good in the first place, after all this pain, then you start to think, oh, it's not actually worth it. So yeah, he has to persist.
But in terms of how they win this competition, that this game said to me that they can win the Europa League.
Yeah, of course. They've got Bruno Fernandes. Of course they can.
But they'll win it in this method. They'll win it by it being like a tense first leg against Bilbao, then a second leg where it's and then Bilbao will score, and then they'll be going out, and then Slabhead comes on, and then they'll win it. That's how they'll win it, and then they'll get to the final against Tottenham, and you'll have these two utterly chaotic sides playing against each other, and it'll be a terrible tactical battle of like nonsense shapes all over the pitch, and it'll be like 4-3, and we'll hail it the best game ever, and what a wonderful thing.
I think we could quite easily just see the collapse without the comeback.
You think they've had enough comebacks?
I mean, both things are quite possible.
Both things can be true. Ding! Ding!
Because the collapse at that moment, it was like, your head was in your hands. Think this is so bad. This is awful. This is embarrassing, and yeah, it's just like a moment of inspiration gives them hope, and then the energy in the place completely changes. And Old Trafford still, despite how kind of it wasn't toxic, but it was like
still protests before the game in both games.
Yeah, but even when they'd thrown it away, the camera kept panning to the crowd, and there's people standing with their hands and having their hands on their head, just like looking completely ghostly.
Yeah, and
then the energy just flips in a moment, and when it does, Old Trafford still. I think Amarim said afterwards, which was quite endearing actually, people want to, kind of pocket or bottle like moments in games and stuff. I want to bottle that noise and that kind of emotion in the stadium. He's like, that's one of the best things in football. And Old Trafford still, despite everything that's going on, is very powerful when it gets like that. So, yeah, they have a chance, but I still think United are calamitous.
Can we all agree, though, that Harry Maguire nodding one in at the back post for 5-4 is one of the best moments of the season?
Yeah, and then just looking really menacingly at the crowd, like just staring at them with his, jaw thrust out.
I wanted to talk about Wolves. They secured their survival in the Premier League with a 1-0 win at Manchester United, who did play abysmally in that game. Vitor Pereira's quietly done a decent little job.
Decent? Yeah, much better than decent. He's made up 13 points on Manchester United since his appointment. I know we're saying Manchester United aren't good.
Big, yeah.
Only
Ridiculous.
Liverpool, Arsenal, Newcastle and Man City have won more points in that time.
Yeah.
So that's the fifth best record. I think was that the fifth or sixth best record since his arrival.
And he's done that with Cunha getting suspended.
Exactly, yeah. It's been a brilliant turnaround. And he's also, we talk there about the kind of building. Cooper's struggling to have a rapport with the fans. He very quickly developed one of them. O'Neill struggled at Wolves actually. There was a bit of a feeling, everyone outside Wolverhampton thought Gary O'Neill's a really great manager, one of the brightest young English managers. And if you went to the stadium, as I know Hamza did several times, you would not find the same sort of attitude towards Gary O'Neill in the stadium. So it was important for Pereira, if he was going to be successful, to change that, and he did. And Charlotte's written a piece today about
trips to the pub,
points then pints. So he's going to pubs after games and speaking to the fans. A little bit gimmicky, but it's it all worked and it was all important. And he also greatly improved the defensive record, greatly improved the record at defending set pieces, which was calamitous, and he's made them an effective team. So
he's been really
job.
good at the thing that O'Neill struggled with was, and he said it openly on several occasions, was that his players were too emotional and he found it hard to control them. And then you bring in a manager who appears to be quite emotional, and you think, well, this could be combustible. This isn't right, is it? You need someone very, very calm if the players are a bit overexcited. But what he's managed to do is to tap into the passion and emotion. The players look like they're having fun. They really do look like they're having fun. And there is emotion there. And he's managed to say, yeah, I like that. We'll make that work. While at the same time, as Charlotte points out, he has these spurts of being really quite severe with them, like cancelling Christmas Day off. And they accept it because they then go and win on Boxing Day.
Then he takes them to Wetherspoons.
And they take some Wetherspoons. But no, but the point is, I don't know if that's accidental or somebody saw that there was a really good fit there, because that is what threatened to implode Wolves. I think they always looked like they had fantastically good players relative to their points tally. There's just so much talent in that team and relationships in that team, but there was also this underlying sense that they couldn't game manage very well. They individually they got over emotional, which led to bookings, which led to making the wrong decisions. And O'Neill calling it out, saying it's really difficult for me to manage these players' emotions. And they've brought in an emotional guy. Maybe that's how it works, because he is emotional himself. He understands what's making them tick, why they're getting emotional. And he's crafted it to say, we can make this into a superpower and quite rapidly just zoom out of the problems of any idea we're going to get relegated. So I think the best thing about Wolves is the fit. The fit is fantastic.
Do we think if he keeps some of the players that he's got, they can go up the league? Or will they still be around the same where they are now? Can they be in the kind of Bournemouth's and Fulham's conversation?
I think that squad is like good enough for that. I think that's usually the defining thing about where a team finishes.
Even if they keep Cunha and those midfielders you were talking about before?
They've got 4 players, I think, that are like. So Cunha, Gomez, Andre, Nuri. But that's about it. And I don't think
Larsson's improved over the season.
That's
I
true,
think.
but I don't think that's
you could
enough
hang your hat on
quality
him.
to move
No, I
up the
kind of
table.
agree. I think they've really, let's be honest, they've gone through a period of like austerity, really, to try and comply with spending rules, which other teams didn't, and that's been a part of their issue. That's been a part of their problem. I think they do need to invest in the team now, but there'll still be. I mean, I don't want to be too curmudgeonly about this, but there'll still be probably the same issue next season about the gulf for the promoted teams to try and make up, and how bad you're going to have to be to actually be relegated. So, and Wolves will still be starting from a stronger position than any of the teams that were promoted. So, I think you can take the team forward, absolutely, but they need to invest in the squad. I think they could do another striker, they could do another defender, and I don't think they will keep Cunha.
Yeah, what they need
Cunha's
to
got a release clause in his contract now.
What they need to do is set up a holding company and then refinance the stadium.
Hamza's on one today.
And then sell it to themselves. And then, no, seriously, as in like, I would do this. And then use that money that you sold to yourself to then fund your new summer spending spree. That's exactly what I would do.
There you go, Wolves. They're sorted for
Or
the
any
summer.
promoted team, they should do that.
Sorted for the summer. But happier times for Wolves. And you can read Charlotte Dunker's piece about how Vitor Pereira has masterminded that survival in the Premier League on the Times website. Now, loads more to come, including a debate about the greatest midfielders to have graced our league. But it's time for a break. It's time for the quiz question. Who am I talking about when I say a former footballer who played as a winger for Leeds, Tottenham, Everton and Burnley and won 21 caps for England? Nice and easy. See you after the break. Back to the Game Football Podcast from The Times. I'm Tom Clark and I've got Hamza Khalik-Luna, Alison Rudd and Gregor Robertson with me. Gregor in with the answer, although I think Hamza you knew it as well, which was?
Aaron Lennon.
Aaron Lennon. Nice and easy. Gregor Robertson, you were at a thrilling game at the weekend. Do you want to talk about it?
No.
No? Sure? Not at all? 0-0?
Yeah, Palace 0-0 with Bournemouth. Some
Gregor
question-
emailed me on Saturday night being like, you don't want me to write anything on this, do you?
It was really bad. It was bad before the red card. I mean, we could talk about that if you want. It was like...
Don't have to. Got loads more to talk about. Got to talk about Brentford's forward line.
It was soft. It's like, do you feel that these decisions that ruin a game, 2 bookings, and then there was a similar one with Scott from Bournemouth as well, that wasn't given. So there's a bit of a lack of consistency. But I think most fair-minded people would also say that neither of them should have been sending off, and it ruined the game. It wasn't a good game before, but it really ruined the game after that. And a bit of a missed opportunity for Bournemouth, given that they had a man advantage for 50 minutes and they've got a ridiculously hard run in now. So their hopes of a European place are fading a little bit.
A test for Bournemouth to come, and Palace hoping to turn around some form before that FA Cup semi-final. I wanted to ask quickly about Bukayo Saka and Mikel Arteta. Hamza, I'm going to ask you in a minute about player load and work rate and things, and I wanted to know whether that was a part of it. But that was the biggest, oh my God, in the office yesterday on the editing floor was that tackle. I mean, it's just absolutely horrid tackle, isn't it, Gregor? There's a bit of chat about, what's he trying to do if he's not trying to leave one on him?
I think that comes from like fear. It comes from a place of fear. I don't think he really thought to himself, I'm going to rake my studs down the back of his Achilles here or whatever. I think it's like a bit of a sort of desperate sort of lunge in that direction, and he's completely taken him out. I think, but it comes from a place of fear because he'd done him so many times. He kept holding him off, and you don't want him to turn you again. You don't want him to do a little 1-2 and beat you again. It's just like I've kind of done that myself, and it was really bad though because it was one of them where his foot's still kind of moving, and it's like his studs are caught in him and follow his leg as it moves off.
I mean, it was
terrible.
Incredibly strong team that Mikel Arteta picked, Alisson. Like, incredibly strong. You know, part of the conversation yesterday on the editing floor was, well, will Liverpool win the title today? Which obviously we needed an Ipswich win for that to happen. Were you a little bit surprised at how strong that team was and that Bukayo Saka was in the starting lineup?
No, I commended him for it, especially when you think about how we've been talking about how abysmal Man United were against Wolves, but why did they not tap into that win in the Europa League? Instead, he made loads of changes and made it seem like he almost didn't want them to be connected in any way.
He had openly said, hadn't he, I'm sacking off the league now and just saving the players for the Europa League.
That's not what a Manchester United manager says. Do you want to have the worst ever points tally? I mean, he's
going to.
It's
I think
bad. It's bad. So the opposite happened with Arteta. He's thinking, goodness me, we've got PSG and they're rather good. And so you've got to really think about a lot of different elements of how you win that. Yeah. So one of them is momentum, a sense of invincibility. If you go and thrash Ipswich and get some patterns going, that's good. And what does that look like over in France? Oh, Arsenal looking good, even when it doesn't matter who they're playing. Oh, they're looking good.
I agree. Glasner actually thought, so there was one interesting thing that came out. Glasner spoke about, they obviously have the FA Cup semi-final next weekend.
Yes.
Palace. They were just tonked by 5 goals in their last 2 games, so 10 in total. And then they went down to 10 men before half-time. The Glasner said afterwards, this was an outstanding second half performance by my team because, like, after conceding 10 goals, going down to 10 minutes, a difficult situation. The red card has almost given us confidence. Like, we can come off the pitch and feel really proud of the way we've held on for a point in there. And so he's like, he's talking about the psychology of football and saying that, you know, being able to grind out that point. They've got Arsenal coming as well. You want to approach a big game in a in the right state of mind. And it is important to keep winning and playing well. It's also important for players to keep playing well individually as well. You could just say, we'll just wrap Saka in cotton wool, but you've got to get him on the pitch to keep that rhythm to prepare right for the biggest game of the season. It's the same for Palace. They just found themselves in a situation where kind of getting that confidence came in a very different way.
Hamza, in terms of managing players' workload, is that the load you were talking about recently with Saliba and things? Is that part of it? Saka obviously coming back from injury. That was the reaction of everyone in the office as soon as this injury happened, and then he stood up and you're like, oh, he's okay. Get him off. Get that strapping on him straight away. Is there part of it that he'll be managing his fitness back to elite level that he needs to be? Or, Alisson, and then this can be coming to you, do you think this is a bit of a PR game from Mikel Arteta? But that first point, do you think there's a bit of a fitness management here for Saka?
Yes, there's a couple of ways you could do it. Literally a couple of ways. You could build up a player's load just in training, which is the safest thing to do because you can avoid situations like that where someone tackles them. And you can have, if you want, match intensity training. However, at this point in the season, well, there's a larger discussion about whether you should have match intensity training because it takes stuff out of your players' legs. And if you look at, say, Havertz's injury, which you don't expect for a player to suffer, so a soft tissue hamstring injury while on a warm weather training camp, you usually wouldn't get that unless you've got high intensity training. So there is a cost to that. So you could build up the load in training or you could build it in matches. The difficulty with matches is that you have incidents like this where someone could foul you or injure you, or the level of intensity, you can't control it, right? Because if it just becomes an end-to-end match, the guy's on the pitch, he's just going to have to do all that running. Right. You can't just step in at some point and go, yeah, that's enough. You're in the red zone now. And on the red zone as well, so usually what you want to do is you increase your there's something called the I said this before, but I've forgotten. You have the acute and chronic workload ratios, right? And essentially, you only want to increase your workload compared to previous 3 weeks by a third. So 1.3 is a decimal, right? Once you go beyond that, that's when you're literally in the red zone. So the idea is to just have top-ups where possible, and that might be a match. That might be 40 minutes, might be 15 minutes, and then you slowly build up the playing load. So take the Liverpool match, for example. Slot mentioned Trent could only play 15 minutes.
Yeah.
The sports science team said to him, yep, you got 15 minutes here, you can play with that. If you move beyond that, it's going to be in the red zone. I think that was generally the idea with Saka. And you saw...
So do you think, sorry to interrupt, do you think there's a potential that Leif Davis's horror tackle aside, the 50 or so minutes he played would probably have been, that had been perfect for his management of his fitness back for a PSG game?
I think that was the idea. And I think you've seen Arteta try to do that before. There was a cup match. I can't remember. Waneri scored and then Saka came on, I think, in the 60th minute. I can't remember which match it was, but Arsenal fans will be able to remember.
Everybody was thinking, why have they put him on?
Yeah, and I think that was, again, like trying to top him up. But as in, because we can see how many minutes he's playing in matches, but we don't know what they're doing in training and how much work they're putting in training. So we can't track the red zone very, very closely. We can estimate it, but I think that was the idea there.
This sounds like a dry subject, but it's actually quite important.
No, it sounds fascinating, because that's what I mean. That's what everyone on the editing floor was thinking yesterday. Both, oh my God, look at this strong team he started. He started Saka. Surely you'd just be not playing him at all until PSG.
But when you got,
and then also when looks like he gets injured, you're like, get him off, quick, get him off.
Look, he didn't play. Thomas Partey didn't play, and I think that often managers will use a match like this as a dry run for...
Is Partey suspended, though, for the first leg?
Exactly. So Partey didn't start, and he's suspended for the first leg.
I see.
So this is an opportunity
this is him practicing the lineup he might use.
Perhaps.
Interesting.
But that was some of the sense that I got, because obviously there's a discussion at the moment, where should Rice play? Because he played quite well recently as a bit further up on as a number 8. Some of his qualities are slightly inhibited when he's a number 6. But if Partey's not playing, then he's going to have to be there. And then how do you construct the midfield? Do you still keep Marino up top because he offers you physicality and the ability to play long into him and work
Lovely
off him?
flick as well, that backheel flick for the second goal. Beautiful.
Martinelli as well, 50 goals for Arsenal. He's the 4th youngest player to reach that. He's still only 23. I feel like kind of getting close to writing Martinelli off at certain points of the season after injury, and that season when he got 15 goals or whatever, and him and Saka were the best wingers in the league, feels like quite a long time ago. But he's starting to come into some really good form. He was excellent against Real Madrid as well. That would be a big boost for them between now and the end of the season.
Much needed. Fascinating analysis, that. It wasn't boring at all, Cricket.
But it's interesting. They're just also, like, Reece James is another one this weekend.
Yeah.
They're saying we'll never play him it'll be a long time until we play him 2 games in 3 days. And in this game they did, but they brought him off at half time. Like, these things never used to happen in the past. Nobody brought me off at half time because I was like near in the red zone, I'm afraid.
Oh.
It's like,
you can track this with certain players. They have a record of when they go past a particular sort of number,
right?
They break.
A number of games?
As in their minutes average in like a 2-week or 3-week period.
Right.
There are 2 examples that stick out to me. Alexander-Arnold's one and Jordan Henderson's another. If you see there, I think it's around... I can't remember the exact number, but I'll find it, and next time I'll just say the number. But as in, you can literally track their average, and as soon as they move into the red zone, there's a soft tissue injury straight away.
I'd also give Hamza a bit of credit here, in that, like, well before Christmas, he was talking about Liverpool and the number of players they had who were heading for the most minutes they've ever played in a league season, and even the point in the season when that was. And what happened? They started to lose games. Their season was looking like a historic one. Still going to be a very successful one, but they hit a bit of a wall, and that's the load is really important now, given the number of games that our players are expected to play, the intensity they are at. So managing this correctly and smartly is important.
Yeah, we'll hope that injury to Bukayo Saka isn't too bad, and it was just a bit of precautionary strapping when he was on the bench. Let's quickly talk about Brentford before we talk about Kevin De Bruyne in midfielders. 4-2 win against Brighton. Goals for Brian Mbeumo and Jan Wissa as well. Hamza, you just wanted to talk about these 2 forwards. It is a remarkable thing what Brentford have done and these 2 players have done when you consider that they lost Ivan Toney. And we've barely even mentioned that fact, have we, all season? No one's going, oh, where's Ivan Toney? They're missing Ivan Toney. And it's largely down to these two players. And, Alison, you can come in a minute, Thomas Frank.
They're sick. I might sound like I hate most football matches, but I like watching Brentford and I like watching Palace and Bournemouth. That's about it, really.
Is there a difference, can I ask, between sick and cool? Because cool's another time when I know that you're really like vibing someone when you're like, oh, they're cool, man. Is cool and sick different? Are they different statistical categories?
It is, but Bermo and Wissa are both
They're
sick
in both
and cool.
Sick and cool.
Because Bermo has 24 goals and assists in the league this season, which is the same as Haaland, which puts him at joint third in the league, and then Wissa has 19, which puts him at 8th. And I mean, the goals that you saw in this match are a great representation of how they play well as a double, because I think Berman got 2 goals and an assist, and then Wissa got a goal, and did he also get an assist? Yeah, he did. And so I think the first goal is an amazing break by Bermo. Wissa isn't involved in this, but well, he is actually, because he's not in the middle, which means that Bermo's moved to the middle. And what I really like about them is how they have this understanding of when to rotate and when to go and when to support. And you often see Wissa pulling over to the right side to allow Bermo to come in and shoot or combine with him. If you look at the third goal, I think it was the third goal, there's a really nice combination between the two. Bermo breaks down the right side. Wissa is in like the number 10 space, running into the box while he's got a player ahead of him. So again, it
was a great layoff too. It was like really delicate, right weight of pass as well.
Exactly where he wants, and that you only get from understanding your teammates and how they want to play. But again, that comes from what I guess Alison is about to jump into, the system that has been made. And how they slot into it. But as in to just quickly, before Alison jumps in, these signs were there last season.
It's been a weird show today.
When Tony wasn't playing, as in, it was quite clear that these guys probably...
Yes, yeah, they did really well.
There was some writing about how they would actually be fine without Tony, and this was a sign of it, so credit to...
There was a point that they lost their big signing as a replacement.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thiago.
Yeah. That's a great quiz question, isn't it, for the end of the season? Who's the bloke Brentford signed that barely played instead of Ivan Toney? But Alison, Hamza's teed you up there perfectly to talk about Thomas Frank and his system.
I think we cannot praise Thomas Frank enough. Okay,
we give it a good go on this podcast. I think.
I actually don't think we do enough about him, because
it's been a couple of weeks since this segment, admittedly, but we're back now.
For listeners, like Alison has a grin, like it's huge.
Okay, no, he is a lovely man, and he's the guy we'd all like to go for a pint with, right? We established this. He's the most
small plates. I've told you, small plates in
ordinary bloke geezer that we've got in the Premier League. He doesn't seem to have an ego. Okay, but let's just park that for a minute in terms of pure football. What he gets out of each individual player is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. That it doesn't matter what crisis they have, he has found a solution. So, Keane Lewis Potter, I mean, he was a sort of deeply average, probably a winger, that's what he was. Maybe a bit short, maybe not quite fast enough. Didn't look that imposing on games. Has to fit in emergency fullback, and he's amazing. He's amazing. He should be winning an award for transition into
We can give him an award. That's a fun end-of-season award.
Someone far more influential in a position he never trained to be in. Every single time I've seen him play, he does it. He defends well. So it doesn't matter if they're playing the occasional, they're playing him as a sort of wing back, or they're playing him in a 4 at the back as a full back. It doesn't matter to him. He has the Duracell bunny thing. He is intuitive. He has great link-up play. He looks like he's played there all his life, and he's unassuming with it. Absolutely. And yet he doesn't get mentioned like the people who put players like Kirk, as I mentioned, is going to go for big money to a top 4 team. It's because he's been converted into that role, and it's an emergency measure. But it's just one example of how, and also whatever the crisis, then Frank finds a solution. But also his game management, you will see him, the way who he brings on, who he chooses to bring on, how many minutes he gives Matthias Jensen, for example. I don't think he's at the moment got 90 minutes in him, but he seems to time perfectly when he should be coming onto the pitch to have. And it's a hard thing to do, to be creative when you're not on the pitch all the time. Those sorts of little things. And when I interviewed Kasper Hellman, the ex-Denmark manager, he worked with Thomas Frank when he was very, very young, just coming into management. And he said what he does is he loves his players so much. He makes them believe in themselves. So we've touched on this podcast about man management and so on. But if you've got that trick where the people who play for you believe they're amazing because every day in training you're telling them they're amazing, they are producing well above what their salaries are and what you might have expected from them at the start of the season. And I just think, wow, every time I go to Brentford, and I know it's slightly naff, they do the
Remember,
lap of honour, whatever.
We've got to do greatest midfielders.
Yeah,
of
no, but
umbrellas.
I know it's slightly naff, they do that, but it doesn't feel naff when you're there. It does not feel naff when you're there because of their size and what they give. Even in defeat, they give it all.
And that is a wonderful Brentford segment,
there's
Gregor
one thing they've not
Robertson.
said. We talked about converting a left back. Sorry, Tom. But they were both wingers. These guys are the same was kind of true of Watkins.
Who, you mean Wisser and Mbeumo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and they kind of still are. It's weird. It's not like a straightforward formation. They still almost act as wide forwards. They do a lot of their goals or creation of goals come from coming out from out to in. But it's the same with Watkins. Watkins started off as a striker as a kid, but then he became a winger, and he was a big success as a winger. Then Frank made him a centre forward, and he was sold for 40 odd million to Aston Villa. So, like, you're right. That's a very important point Allison's make. It's Brentford's and Frank's ability to think outside the box with every player and look at them and think how they can best fit into this team and how we can best get the best of them.
Can I just ask you, Alison? We've
Yes,
done this
of course.
podcast with Gregor a long time. Do you think the Gregor Robertson good shoot is like the Paul Hollywood handshake on Great British Bake Off? You know, like when you're making a point and Gregor interrupts, good shoot. Like that's like the kind of...
I will be beaming for the rest of the
Yeah,
week.
absolutely.
Thank you, Gregor.
Absolutely. We finish with a quick mention. It'll have to be quick now because of the lengthy Brentford love-in section, which was quite right, Alison, of course. Kevin De Bruyne on the Times website now revealing his shock at Manchester City's decision to let him go, saying he's still got plenty to offer age 33 and not ruling out staying in the Premier League. A classic bit of brinksmanship and nonsense. He's obviously either going to Saudi Arabia or the MLS. But just for a laugh, think of a Premier League club he could go to off the top of your head. I'm going Aston Villa. Bit of midfield experience, probably going to be in Europe in some form next season. Think he'd look good in the kit as well.
I don't think it is ridiculous that he would.
You think he might stay?
No, as in, people often forget this, but as in, his family are here.
Yeah,
When you have children and a partner who's very happy where they're living, it becomes quite difficult, especially when your children and partner and friends. You can't just sort of say, "Oh, we've got to move for a year or two." I mean, you're often put in that weird situation where you go, "All right, I'm going to move, and you guys stay here," which very few families want to do. So
could still commute to Villa. Not too far from Manchester. Any other suggestions?
Well, I just don't think City realise what they did, what a mistake they've made in
You
how
think they
they've
should have
let him
kept
go. No, I think they thought he'll go. It's fine. He'll go abroad. It's fine. We won't see him again. What they don't want is an angry Kevin De Bruyne trucking up a team that can
Aston
take
Villa.
points off them next season. That's what they did not think would happen. And I think if the whole thing had been done more civilly and with more respect from his point of view, that he probably would have gone abroad. But I think they've now got a player who's angry and has a point to prove and has quite recently shown that he can turn it on when he wants to turn it on. Maybe I just don't think he's been fully fit this season, and that has
He's never
affected
fully
him.
fit. That's the
no,
problem.
but okay, but
What we're saying is true. It's like it's entirely plausible that he has a decent run of fitness, and you go, oh my God, Kevin De Bruyne has still got it, and he's doing it for someone else, and it's like, oh, City, what have you done? But the likelihood is you'll play 15 games, and whoever's going to give him 400 grand a week for that, it's going to be a big decision to make.
What about Stockport, Gregor, if they get up to the Championship? Could stay in the local area. They've got a bit of money to spend.
Maybe Burnley.
Burnley,
Yes, local.
local, absolutely.
Yeah.
Any other suggestions?
Leeds.
Newcastle, Leeds. He'd also look good in a Leeds kit as well. Any other shouts for Kevin De Bruyne, or should we move on to whether he is or not in the greatest for midfielders in the Premier League? Top
move
5.
on.
Yeah, I can't see many other. I mean,
No, fine. Let's move on.
I can't
Is he
see
in the
any
top
others.
5 greatest midfielders in the Premier League? Yes or no?
Of course.
Of course.
Well, I mean, maybe.
Maybe.
He doesn't. He's never done it emotionally for me.
So there's a good... I think I'm going to do...
God.
Christ. I'm going to get that on a T-shirt for you, I think, Alison. He's never done it
Genuinely
emotionally
going to be
for
a
me.
boycott of this podcast from Manchester.
That's what I'm worried about. That's what I'm talking about. Anyway,
We give
Neil,
them
I
a
think you need
good
to
20
heavily
minutes
edit
every
the show
week. I'm
today.
sure that they'll be fine.
but I'm
I
going
was
to
just
tell you what.
really nice about him.
I tell you what, I'm going to do this as a two-parter. Gregor, you can save your views on this for Thursday's show when we'll bring it up again with Martin Samuel. But one thing I wanted to establish, should we have this conversation about midfielders as just midfielders who score and create goals?
No.
Because it should be all midfielders.
See, I think you should reframe the question. I think you should say,
That's what I'm
who's
asking.
the most influential?
Who is the most influential
Or
midfielder? Impactful. So we're then including the likes of Keane, Vieira, Kante,
Absolutely.
Rodri. Right,
Who was
okay.
excluding those?
I was going to say whether we could do two different categories because I was
The attacking
finding this quite
midfielder and
hard.
the
Yeah,
defensive
yeah.
one.
We could do midfielders who score and create, and then like your complete midfielder type thing. Because you've got players like David Silva and Cesc Fabregas and things, but you wouldn't put them down as the Patrick Vieira route, would you?
No.
So that's what. But you're just going. You want the impactful, influential top 5 midfielders in the Premier League, and for you, Kevin De Bruyne is in that list.
Absolutely.
Alisson and Hamza.
Making it, well,
See, I was trying to make it easier, but Gregor wants to make it harder.
Put Kante there, put Gerrard there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with De Bruyne being there.
Yeah.
Vieira.
Vieira, yeah.
There's a few players that also just didn't manage to influence the game as you would have hoped,
Mm.
even though they're fantastic.
Well, they're not
because they're a
making
bit
the
old
list then,
or
Hamza.
like no, because they're a bit older or injury prone. Like Thiago Alcantara is probably like the most technical player in the midfield group, and the one I enjoyed the most. But he was just injured a lot, so I don't know if you can include him.
No.
But I think he's probably, in terms of a technician, I think he might be better than Fabregas.
So hang on, your fight. So I think you're on 4. Gerrard, De Bruyne, Vieira,
Kante.
Kante.
Sorry, is that?
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. So you need a 5th.
Someone.
Roy Keane?
You guys talk, and then I'll
Roy
think of the
Keane?
5th.
Oh, I'm not making a
Scholes.
list.
Yaya
I'm not making
Toure.
a
Scholes,
list.
Lampard.
Yaya
that's a good
Toure.
one.
Yaya Toure's on my 5.
We're missing
Scholes, yeah.
Moussa Dembele,
Moussa Dembele.
the one who
Did he make
the
you feel
one-
things
Yeah,
emotionally?
the one who played for Fulham and then Spurs because
Fade out, Neil.
because
What do you mean you're not making lists? Hamza's just made a list.
I didn't know you were making lists. I don't like making lists because I regret what I
anti-list,
say.
yeah.
Then you think, why did I say that? But I do want to say.
Do you not think that every podcast?
Why did I say that? No, Moussa Dembele. I think we're forgetting. Moussa Dembele never, ever gave away possession.
He was
Ever,
great. He was
ever.
great.
He's really good, but
He was really good. He actually
Maurizio-
pioneered the bum out
Maurizio-
before I'd say John McGinn did, Moussa Dembele.
Yeah, he's
Would you
still
have
in
Rodri in
Wales.
goal?
Best arses in the midfield area, I'd say. That's a different conversation. Go on, Alison.
McGinn's in there now.
What do you mean in there? He's the winner.
Pochettino said of Dembele,
Oh, you're still talking about Dembele.
without him, we are dead.
Do you want Rodri in yours, Gregor?
No.
Your top 5? No.
Actually, go on. You can tell the guys your top 5 then. Influential.
I didn't have a top 5, but it's the top 2 are Gerrard and De Bruyne.
And Gerrard's not second, so.
Fade out.
They
Neil.
are. I would put Vieira. Who else are we talking about?
Lampard
Paul
should be in
Scholes?
there, I think.
Paul Scholes? Scholes ahead of
Scholes.
Lampard.
Fabregas?
surely.
No, I don't think so.
Paul
I think for some
Scholes.
reason
No, I said-
Lampard's
I said Roy
overlooked
Keane.
because he
I said Roy
because he
Keane.
had A levels.
Yeah,
Roy
I mean,
Keane?
this is again the thing. Is the influence on his team was extraordinary, like possibly bigger than Scholes. Like if you asked the teammates,
Yeah.
probably it was. They would say Scholes was a better player, but his influence, it's key.
Did you have Kante in your 5, Hamza?
I did, yeah.
Because Kante-
Kante's arguably top if you think
'Cause he
about
won
what he
back to
won.
back.
What he
Yeah,
won.
Yeah,
yeah.
Kante should be.
You
in
could
there.
have
remarkable.
Makelele
It's not
and
easy.
Essien in the discussion as well.
Yeah,
definitely,
absolutely.
yeah.
Makelele, definitely. That's why I was trying to make it easy, guys. I was trying to do little categories of different midfielders so we could give everyone a mention and everyone would be happy. But we've decided to make it hard. Hamza, thank you very much for picking a top 5. Alison, you're banned from the show ever again because you didn't pick a top 5. Listeners, send in your suggestions, tom.clark@thetimes.co.uk with your suggestions for the most influential and impactful midfielders in the Premier League history. Gregor Robson's got a couple of days to revise his list before we go again with Martin Samuel on Thursday. In the meantime, we're recording this on Monday, and there's loads and loads of Football League action. Me and Gregor will be back with another EFL show for you this week, so make sure you're listening. But for now, Hamza, Alison, Gregor, thank you very much for joining me. Too for listening, and we'll be back with the regular show on Thursday. See you then.